Boop. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tarot Thursday. I'm your host, Reverend Mary Hawk, and with me is Reverend Don Lewis.
Hello, hello.
And as usual, we are here to do 3-card readings, more or less. So if you want to post a question in chat, we'll be happy to do a reading for you. If you don't have a question, you can just say hi and tell us where you're from. And I see Lena has posted a question. Lena wants a financial reading for the next 2 months.
Okay, we can do that.
We can do that. Hope everyone is having a good day.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
And as you can see, we are actually shuffling our cards. Mine at least are on camera.
Yeah. I feel like I need to readjust my chair.
Okay. Ooh. Well, I have drawn 3 cards. First card is the 7 of Coins. And the 7 of Coins is laying out your plans for the future. And hello to Kayleen in the chat room. Considering your options for the future, maybe not being entirely clear on exactly where you're going, but getting it together. With that, we have the 10 of Wands, which is saying, you're kind of waiting. It's almost time to have that change. And I would say from this card that what you're really asking about is a change in your finances in this coming period. It's coming. And then we have the 5 of Wands, which says there's a lot of conflict around it. That conflict might have to do with what you need to do to make the changes you want. It may have to do with people around you who maybe are not entirely on the same page with you regarding those changes. But there's conflict, and let us draw the infamous Brian card. And we've drawn death. And death, of course, does not mean physical death. It means change. We already had a reference to change. So what I'm going to say to you, in this next 2-month period, regarding your finances, you're going to spend more of that time waiting for the change, but it is coming. And when it comes, it will be a significant change in terms of what's going on. There's a lot of conflict around it. Let's draw one more. Because, of course. And we've drawn the past. And the past says that in dealing with that change, you want to apply what has worked for you before. You want to learn the lessons of your past. You want to consider the circumstances that you're dealing with in light of circumstances you've already dealt with. And there you go.
And hello to Kayleen. So the first card I've got for you is the 4 of Swords. And this is saying you're in kind of a timeout or a rest period. Next card I've got is the Body. And here we're seeing the Earth as Gaia. And this card is talking about how everything is interconnected. So things are working together in ways you may not realize right now. So be aware of that. And I've got the King of Lamps, which is advising prayer and manifestation to bring about the change you want. And I'll also pull a Brian card, and I've got Justice. So you aren't going to see the changes you want, but they're not going to be immediate. So I hope that is helpful, Lena.
We want to say hello to Lynn in the chat room.
Yes, hi. Hi, Lynn. Good to see you.
And Lynn says, hoping you are both safe and well. We are.
Yes.
Hopefully there's no reason we should not be,
Yes.
other than the normal effects of life in the current century. So last week, we had an interesting thing happen. We had a troll. I'm going to call it a troll because they were so strident in what they were saying that it's hard for me to take them in any other way.
I agree. We had a troll.
We did not, of course, acknowledge the troll during the program, but they were going on about certain superstitions about tarot. And I thought it might be appropriate to take a couple of moments and talk about some of those superstitions and why you should not be governed by superstitions. And the difference perhaps between a superstition and a legitimate practice. One of the things that this person really went off about was our pulling cards with our right hand instead of the hand of destiny. And a tarot reading couldn't possibly work if you didn't pull the cards with your left hand. The first thing I have to say to that is, this is my left hand. I'm aware that that might not be intuitive because I realize my camera is mirroring the image. And I try to keep
left
that
hand. That's my wedding ring if anyone wants some verification.
So if you watch, you'll notice unconsciously at this point, I almost always draw with my left hand. The reason is because when I learned to do this back in the 1970s when dinosaurs ruled the earth, a few of them are still around, showing up in the comments section. That was an extremely pervasive attitude in tarot. And I do it as a matter of habit and tradition. But when I teach tarot, I don't really make that big a deal out of it. I don't consider it to be that big a deal for a number of reasons. And one of them is that I largely reject the whole right hand, left hand complex that people have. I myself am ambidextrous. If I can do it with my right hand, I can probably do it with my left hand too. Whether we're talking about eating or writing or drawing or any number or sculpting or any number of other things that I do. So why shouldn't I be able to use it to draw a card? Either hand. I do not consider it to be something that you must follow to always use the left hand. It is a traditional belief, but I also regard it as a superstition. I tend to think that the whole idea of having a dominant hand is culturally imposed. And I think that if children were trained to use both hands, most of them would be able to use them both equally well. So that's my opinion on the subject. Not that anyone was really asking for it.
Also, our troll kept telling us that it's not possible to read tarot for anyone but yourself.
Which is very interesting considering that the actual superstition on that subject is in the exact opposite direction. And there are a lot of people who believe you should never read for yourself. And back when I was learning, that was the more common thing that you would have heard. And in fact, in teaching tarot, my attitude is that when you first begin, you want to be careful in reading for yourself because you don't have enough perspective to be able to read yourself dispassionately. You have to learn to do that. But the idea that you can't read for another person goes completely against the entire history of tarot reading.
It really does. Now, I do read for myself frequently,
Mhm.
but when my husband became quite ill and needed gallbladder surgery, I did ask Reverend Don if he would read for the
Mhm.
situation because I knew I could not get myself far enough from the situation.
And and I'm the same way. I have no difficulty reading for myself and do it frequently. But if it were something where I didn't feel that I had enough distance, I would go to someone else, and I've come to Reverend Marion that way. When my granddaughter was missing, we read on that subject. And of course, she later turned up perfectly fine, um, and was not a small child at the time, but it was still a matter of concern. And when it's something like that, it can be helpful to go to another person, whether you're talking about tarot, clairvoyance, whatever kind of reading that you do. Because when you're doing it for yourself, your hopes and fears can interfere. The messenger warps the message. If you're very good, you can keep that to a very definite minimum. But sometimes it's going to happen. I think last week I told the story of Deandra, the Chicago psychic who my friend Judy had her to dinner and said, you predicted that my daughter was going to be pregnant by this time, and she's not. And Deandra wisely said, well, I guess I was wrong. Sometimes you will be. Of course, the punchline of the story is the following week the daughter was pregnant. But if she hadn't been, sometimes for whatever reason, you're not going to have the distance or the right connection. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's part of the game. And when it comes to reading, sometimes it is helpful to go to another person, even if you read for yourself every day. And many tarot readers like to draw one or more cards for themselves at the start of every day. And that's a very common practice. So where our troll came from, I can't imagine, because they had very bizarre ideas when all is said and done. And hello to Hippie Janet.
Hi, Hippie Janet. And Lynn has clarified that she's asking if we're okay with the horrid air pollution. I am nowhere near any of the current fires, so.
And neither am I. Wasn't a very warm day, but perfectly clean air here.
Yes.
So I'm sorry that other people are having that problem.
Yes. And I certainly wish them all the best. Kylene has asked for a reading on behalf of the world on how best to prepare for the El Nino or El Nino. And hello to Salama. Good to see you.
My comment earlier about being able to see us shuffle the cards is that, sometimes no matter how well you shuffle, they'll keep giving you the same cards.
Sometimes a particular card just fits the energy of the day.
I learned that long ago working in the psychic fairs, that sometimes numerous people would show up with the exact same or very similar issues during the course of a day. And one thing I learned to assume was that was partly a message to me too. The spirit was sending people who had situations that reflected on my own. And well, this is interesting. So, first card is the Five of Cups. In terms of preparing for El Nino, do not expect to be happy with it. We will not be. Eight of Swords, not a lot to do about it, but to endure it and get through it. Followed by the Ace of Coins, which says the way to deal with it is going to involve spending money and or resources. I'm assuming that that is both on a social and an individual level. I'm going to draw a Brian card. And I've drawn Justice. In a question like this, justice can be taken the way I'd normally take it, which is that you will have the result of your action, and the more work you go into preparing for this, the better off you're going to be. And also, we, as a society, we've kind of disregarded a lot of warnings on this, and if we're having a difficult time, there's a certain justice in that.
I have the Chariot. Whatever you're going to do it quickly. I have the Queen of Lamps, which suggests magic. It also suggests working together, whether magically or within your community. I had the King of Swords, which is talking about making good decisions. And I'm going to draw the infamous Brian card. And I have the Queen of Wands. Wands are about passions. So throw yourself into whatever you're going to do about it. Whatever you're going to do it with your whole heart.
And in the chat room, Kayleen makes the remark that one dowsing teacher that they knew had the view that dowsing would always be wrong 2 hours every day. And while Kayleen does not agree with that point of view, they always begin by asking a question to which they know the answer to check on the accuracy. There's something to be said for that.
That is interesting. All right. And Selma says, may I have a reading for job opportunities in the near future? Oh, and Kylie says, thank you. That confirms a few things, including global karma.
Yes, indeed. Oh, well. I have drawn 3 cards, and the first card is the Prince of Wands, followed by the Prince of Lamps, followed by the Ten of Swords. So I would say an important part of this question is to be clear on what you mean by the near future, because we have drawn the cards in terms of that reference. Prince of Wands says that the energy is not very focused at this time. If you want job opportunities at this time, you're going to have to make an effort to focus your energy. But right now, It's not really well focused for that purpose. With it, we have the Prince of Lamps. And I often take the Prince of Lamps as saying, don't beat up on yourself. Address the Prince of Wands and get a little more focus going. Don't beat up on yourself over things not moving as quickly as you like. Let them take the time that they need. Have a little more patience with yourself. Have a little bit more grace with yourself. Followed by the Ten of Swords. And Ten of Swords says that great change is coming to the situation, which I assume is a job opportunity that you would like. But is it in the near future? That brings us back to where we started. What do we mean by the near future? I am inclined to say it's a little farther out than you're hoping for. And let's draw a Brian card to go with all of this. Oh, and we've drawn the Hanged Man, which basically is the card saying, yes, what I was just saying. The Hanged Man is a process of learning and moving forward. And you can see in the card is Odin hanging from the Tree of Life, where he hung for 9 days to obtain the runes, and it took 9 days before he was able to get them. So it says be patient with the time it's going to take to get the result that you want. Let it take the time that it needs, and it will take a certain amount of time. And there you go.
Okay. First card I've got for you is the Two of Lamps. And the Two of Lamps says to reach out to Spirit for help in this, as far as your job prospects. Then I've got the Tower. So when things change, they're going to change in a big way. And then I've got the Princess of Wands. So don't hold yourself back from change. When it's offered, step into it. And then I've got the Veil. So be prepared to find out new things and see situations changing. So I hope that's helpful, Selma.
And we want to say hello to Maynard Child in the chat room, who says, AIviewersstreamboo.com. I'm sorry, Maynard Child. We are not AI. We are actual human readers. For AI, you'll have to go elsewhere. Not that I have anything against AI, but this is not an AI presentation this evening.
Okay.
Although the AI Reverend Don is in development for the years after I have joined the ancestors.
And hello to Morgan.
Hello, Morgan.
And Hippie Janet has asked for a general reading. And I've got an escapee.
Uh-huh. Well, I have drawn 3 cards, and the first card is the Nine of Coins. And the Nine of Coins says to you, well, you've got everything that you need to do the things that you want to do. You can stand on your own 2 feet. You have all the skills that you need. You have the resources that you need. Everything that you need to competently do what you desire to do will be present during this time period, which we'll say is the next couple of weeks. Seven of Wands says, well, yeah, but you may also feel the effort of doing it. Seven of Wands is victory after hard work. It leads to a good place, but you'll feel the effort of doing it. But then anything that's worth doing is worth a little effort. And the Two of Wands says, in a lot of ways, you're heading in new directions. Doing things that perhaps might be new and unfamiliar to you, or leading in new and unfamiliar directions from where you might have anticipated going. And for your Brian card, we have the Ace of Swords. And the Ace of Swords basically says that there are decisions that are going to need to be made in terms of what you're doing in the future and how you're doing it. But you can rely on your good judgment to make those decisions. But there are things that questions that will not answer themselves, you must decide them. And that will be an issue during the next 2 to 3 weeks. And there you go.
All right. So your escapee, the Nine of Lamps. Don't overthink it. So the first card I've drawn for you is Heart. So you are bringing a lot of passion to your current situation. You really care about it. That card shows lovers. This doesn't necessarily mean a romantic situation, but you're deeply emotionally involved in it. Then I have the Nine of Cups. This is the best card or the worst card in the deck, because whatever you wish for, you're going to get it. So if you are focused on woe is me, nothing good ever happens, you're right. If you're focused on I can manifest what I want right now, you're right. So keep your thoughts in order and focus on whatever positive outcome you want right now, because that is what you are going to get. And finally, I've got the Ace of Wands. So wands are about our passions. Focus on what you are passionate about right now. Whatever it is you really, really want to do, now is the time to go for it. So just do it. And I hope that's helpful.
Yes, indeed.
And now we are going to pause for a quick word for our sponsors, and then we'll be back to do more games reading.
We will.
We will.
Rev Don's Book of Stones, Metals, and Crystals. Everything you always wanted to know about the magical and spiritual properties of stones, metals, and crystals in one book. Get your copy today at CorellianPublishing.com.
.com.
Rev Don's Book of Astrology. Everything you always wanted to know about the stars in one book. Get your copy today at CorellianPublishing.com.
.com. CorellianPublishing.com. You can get all my books there, and several other authors' books there as well. CorellianPublishing.com. And Witch School, now in its 25th year. 25 years went by very quickly. There are some big things coming in the future at Witch School. If you're interested in a lifetime membership, you can find them at witchschool.org. You can find the school itself at witchschool.com.
And a lifetime membership is truly a lifetime.
Yes. There are people who bought their lifetime membership 25 years ago, taking a chance that it would actually be a lifetime membership. And for some of them, it has already lasted to the end of their life. And others are still going.
Yes.
There have even been people who purchased lifetime memberships for their as yet unborn children or grandchildren who have since grown old enough to take advantage of it.
I have promised lifetime memberships to both my grandchildren should they want one.
Mm-hmm.
And Hippie Janet, you are welcome. And now Morgane is asking, will they get a job in the month of July?
Well, job opportunities.
Job opportunities in the month of July. Okay, that is a little different.
Well, I have drawn 3 cards because I previously shuffled for this. And you've seen me shuffling these cards, and yet the first card is the 5 of Cups, as it was a couple of readings ago, followed by the 8 of Swords, which followed it a couple of readings ago. And what do we make of those? I hate to say it, but you're probably not going to be overly happy with the job opportunity situation in the immediate future. You will not be particularly happy with what is happening, and you'll probably feel like you're not having the options that you would like to have. It is followed, however, by the 8 of Lamps. And the 8 of Lamps is a card of learning the things that you need to get what you want and mastering those skills. So I don't know if the opportunity that you're looking for is going to come in the month of July, but it is coming. And I would say be patient and let it come to you. I'm going to draw you the Brian card because we must have a Brian card. Oh, and once again, a card we've already seen, the Ace of Coins. But the Ace of Coins is a very good card for a question like this because it represents money and prosperity. And it says that when that opportunity does come, again, I don't know that it will be in July, but I don't think terribly far in the future. But when it comes, it will be positive, and in particular, financially positive. So there you go.
Well, my first card is the 9 of Wands. So this is a situation where nothing is moving right now. The next card I've drawn before. This is the body, the ensouled Gaia, which is talking about the interconnectedness of everything. So I'm going to suggest networking for a job. Talk to everyone you know. Tell them you're looking for a job, what kind of job you want, what kind of job you're qualified for. Put the word out that you're looking. So that, and that may be the way to find your next position. And then I've got the Chariot. So when things do start to move for you, they're going to move quickly. But I don't think it's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Bear in mind, this is July 16th. There's not an awful lot of July left.
This is true.
So I hope that is helpful.
And today is the birthday of the beloved Wendy LaJoy, who, if you're a Corellian, you will remember Lady Wendy as the long-serving first elder of the tradition, as well as many other positions. If you watch our Crystal Web rituals, where we talk about the guardians of the Crystal Web, she is one of them. The guardians of the Crystal Web include Lady Wendy, Lady Bitterwind, Lady Virginia Powell, Katrina Kessler, otherwise known as Foxglove McCloud, and we'll be including Lady Crystal in the future. So when we refer to the guardians of the web, They are the particular guardians that we're referring to. And we want to wish the beloved Wendy a happy birthday among the ancestors today.
Happy birthday to Lady Wendy. And does anyone else have a question for us?
Or do you want us to do the talking head thing?
We can be talking heads.
We can talk more about tarot superstitions.
We can. I have occasionally encountered the you must steal your first tarot deck.
Yeah. I remember a time that it was widely held that the first deck must be given to you. My
Yeah.
first deck was given to me by my mother. It was the Hoi Polloi Tarot. I actually have it here nearby, but I'm not going to dig it out. However, do I believe that? Do I teach that? No. If you remember the tarot lesson at the school, we talk about this because I think people should be aware of these ideas. But what on earth would you do if you didn't know anyone who read tarot?
I bought my first deck because I was just beginning to study the craft, and I literally knew no one to give it to me.
Yeah. I had the good fortune of having a mother who wanted me to have tarot cards and wanted me to learn them. Most people don't.
Exactly.
So I regard that as a superstition. A nice tradition if you want to perpetuate it for people that you know by buying them tarot decks, but I would call it a tradition rather than a reality.
I have given and received decks now, but no, I bought my first one.
Another one that used to be a common idea is that you had to keep your deck in wrapped in a silk cloth specifically. My decks are lucky if they're in a baggie somewhere. This deck is in this lovely little velvet pouch, but not silk. And there was an idea, and it was seriously advanced in an earlier generation, that silk had a particular quality that would keep away unwanted energies. My attitude is this is why you're shuffling the cards before you start the reading to clear them of those energies. You don't need to worry about a silk scarf. There are also people who felt that you needed to keep it in a certain kind of wooden box. But these were relatively recently available at that time. They were very popular, but your ordinary person who might have been reading tarot cards would have been rather hard pressed to get a silk scarf or a fine wooden box in an earlier era.
Yes.
So, and Janet says, at first free classes, and after a few years, I became a lifetime member. Yay. And yes, there are lots of free classes at witchschool.com. We made it a point to have many of them. And Kayleen says, while the focus on learning tarot is on the deck, are there personal guides or deities one can or should develop a relationship with to improve your skills? There certainly could be. None that I particularly recommend. But I suppose if you wanted to, you could try to connect with a skilled reader of the past who is now among the ancestors, who might be a guide for you. Arguably, I did have that around me, even though I never thought of it in those terms, because most of my family were involved in reading in one way or another. My grandmother was my primary spirit guide. She definitely did card reading. But I never particularly felt that influence. I learned it and did it. So I don't know that I would say that you necessarily need to do that, but you certainly could. And hello to Nanda.
Hippie Janet says silk scarf is fancy, and I agree.
Well, and another one they used to talk about was sleeping with the card deck under your pillow for 3 nights when you first get it. Something I have never done because I just don't sleep that way. I move around far too much at night to try to do that.
I already have hubby and the dog in the bed. I'm not adding a deck of cards to the mix.
Yeah. Now, am I saying there's anything wrong with this? Absolutely not. If that's what you want to do, but do you need to do it? I would say no. and Kayleen agrees they have not needed a guide for their dowsing. So, yeah, you don't necessarily need to have a particular patron entity helping you to learn to read necessarily, but you can if you want.
Hippie Janet says my tarot snuggles in bed.
That's cool.
I'm fairly sure mine would go over the back of the bed and require fishing.
The other thing that will probably be less popular with some people that I talk about in the lessons. So some people have very temperamental tarot decks. I do not, but then I'm not an overly temperamental person, I don't think. But I also would never tolerate that out of a tarot deck. I think that when people have those very temperamental tarot decks, it's because maybe it's what that particular reader needs. Maybe it's reflecting their own personality. I don't know. But I certainly have never encountered tarot decks behaving that way.
I had to put a tarot deck in timeout once.
Okay.
We were doing our annual fundraiser for Pagan Pride Day, and this I let someone pick their tarot deck, and I laid out the spread, and it just made no sense.
Mm-hmm.
The cards made no sense in connection with the question. And I just said, "You're not acting right. You're going in timeout." And I scooped them up and put them back in their bag and back in my larger bag that I brought my decks with. And I asked her to choose again. And we shuffled and started all over. And this time I got a reading that made sense.
Good.
So I don't know what was up with that deck that day.
Yeah, and you don't need to. You handled it the correct way. We want to say hello to Melissa Anderson in the chat room. It's good to see you, Melissa. And Melissa recommends connecting with Jean-Baptiste Aliette, the first known professional tarot reader, which is a wonderful idea.
That's great advice. And Hippie Janet adds to my tarot snuggles in bed. It's like a cat.
Tarot reading is a fascinating discipline.
It is.
Studying the history of tarot is a very rewarding thing.
It is.
Some of that history is rather murky, but it's still very rewarding. One of the more interesting things that happened to tarot was the French Revolution. Because when they got rid of the aristocracy, they also insisted on getting rid of the existing court cards. And French Revolution era tarot decks have some interesting accommodations to the politics of the day. And learning about historical readers. And Melissa mentions Jean-Baptiste Aliette. And there are other readers out of history can be a fascinating thing to look into. One of the more interesting readers, I think, is Mademoiselle Lenormand, who was not a tarot reader, but she was a card reader, and she had her own particular system of cards, which are still very popular in some circles. But her story was very interesting. And there is some question about how much of her story as she told it is completely true, but it's still fascinating. Theoretically,
I have a Lenormand deck, but I have tried to work with it, and it doesn't quite gel for me.
And that's why it's so nice that we have so many different possible decks that we can use.
Yes.
Theoretically, she was the reader for Napoleon, although I've heard that questioned, so I don't know. Of course, today we've got so many decks that it's amazing.
It is.
Both tarot and other kinds of oracle decks. And I personally rejoice in that. I remember Eden Gray, who was so very famous for her revolutionary tarot books of the 60s. And I had the honor of meeting her very close to the end of her life at the International Tarot Congress in 1990 something. And she did not like the proliferation of tarot decks. She was very traditional on that score. But I must disagree with her. I think that it adds greatly to the creativity of the genre.
I have a deck called the Deviant Moon deck.
Okay.
It's a rather gothic looking deck. And the figures have things like 3 legs or 3 arms. It's kind of creepy looking. And I was going to read for a friend of mine who's very goth. So I took that deck because I thought she would love it, but it freaked her out. She could not deal with it.
And Melissa says that that is the feature in the upcoming issue of her magazine, The Murky History of Tarot. So check that out.
That's awesome.
Yes. I used to have a very large tarot collection. And when I had the cardiac incident and related issues, we ended up liquidating a lot of that collection. But I've still got a number of interesting decks. And one of the more interesting ones that I've gotten in the last couple of years is the Universal Monster Tarot, which is entirely built around Universal movies monsters. And it's interesting, because that, of course, is another one of my passions.
I lost out on a silent auction for the King of the Hill tarot. It was apparently a limited edition Kickstarter tarot. I would love to find that somewhere someday.
Yep. There are so many interesting things that people have done. And, I think here in the United States, a lot of people don't realize we tend to focus on tarot for divination. In Europe, tarot is sometimes used for divination, but it's also very popular for playing certain traditional card games. And a lot of those interesting collector decks aren't really made for the divination market at all. They're made for collectors of tarot playing cards. It's like the Tarot of the Gnomes that was popular some years ago, was really made for that market from Lo Scarabeo in Italy, where tarot is a huge non-divinatory thing. And yeah, it's fascinating. And do we have any other questions this evening?
Yeah, we've got time for one or possibly two more readings.
Or we can keep talking about the vagaries of tarot.
Before I have to hop on my broom and fly off because I have to go to my day job in the morning.
Yes. Make sure that you check out the magazine and the history of tarot.
What is the name of the magazine, Melissa?
I know the name.
I do not.
But I've gotten old. I've been on the cover of the magazine. It's a wonderful magazine.
Also, everyone, tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central or 8 p.m. Eastern, please tune in for the greatest ever pagan super show extravaganza for our interview with tarot reader Paul McCoy.
Yes.
And the magazine is The Witch's Brew.
Thank you, Melissa. I would eventually have hit on that, but I've come to the point in life that if it's not on the top of the brain, it takes a while to get to it.
Yes.
It's a wonderful magazine. I highly recommend it. And you should definitely check it out. And Kayleen says, more talk is fine with me. And says also, don't forget to like. And Melissa says that The Witch's Brew is 39 years old now, which is a wonderful accomplishment. Congratulations on that, and still going. And that is a great thing.
Yes.
And it's interesting when you come to the part of your life that you can say, my project is 39 years old.
It is.
It's very interesting to look back on so many years. And certainly something that Melissa should be very proud of.
Yes. And Kylene is kidding us. She says the greatest ever supercalifragilisticexpialidocious pagan extravaganza.
Well, yeah, kind of. Well, we chose the name based on the greatest ever restaurant review channel. We just thought it would kind of cut through some of the noise that an ordinary name would not. So
nobody can ignore the name.
Exactly.
They might think we're getting above ourselves, so to speak, but they can't ignore us.
Not if they know us.
And I'll tell you all one of my favorite tarot stories from another Pagan Pride Day tarot fundraisers. We were several of us sitting at a rather long table, and a woman came up, gave me her ticket, and asked her question, and I did a reading. And she didn't like the answer, and she just said, "I'm sorry, Mary. I just can't accept that answer." And she went and bought another reading and sat down with the person next to me. And meanwhile, I had another client, and I finished that reading up, and we were kind of winding down. And I was trying to ignore that because It's none of my business, except my friend next to her pulled some of the same cards I did and was basically telling her the same thing I had. And I'm trying to like give my decks the final shuffle and pack them up and do everything but look over there. And she finally said, "Okay, Mary, just say I told you so."
So in the chat room, Melissa says that she had mistyped and meant to say 20, but 20 is a very long time.
20
and
is.
still very much to be proud of.
It is. And Melissa, your magazine's almost old enough to drink. Next year, I'll buy it a beer.
But it's a lovely magazine, and in the past issues, you'll find one with me on the cover.
Wow.
It's been an interesting life. I don't want to get too far into the grandpa stories, but I still remember back in the day when I was first involved in the Pagan Press, we were still making the magazines using Xerox to publish them and putting them together with typewriters and Scotch tape and whiteout and things like that. Not everyone. There were a few people who were a little bit more advanced than that. The Circle newsletter was printed on newsprint and undoubtedly had a slightly more advanced layout method for that. There was one called Stardust Salamander that was also printed in newspaper format. It was a fascinating time. And Melissa says, I'll be in Nashville in a few. And yes, we go back a while, Don, and I'll always love you. And thank you, Melissa, and I will always love you as well. Who knows? Maybe we can have you come on the greatest ever Pagan Super Show extravaganza one of these weeks.
That would be great, Melissa. Let me know when you're in Nashville.
And I believe she has suggested that the drink that you mentioned should be a margarita.
Okay. I'll buy the magazine a margarita. Well, we're almost at the top of the hour, so will you close us out with a prayer?
Absolutely. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all of the wonderful things that you do with us in this life. We rejoice in the path we walk, and we ask you to guide us and help us through dreams and divinations and messages and knowings and all of the different ways that you have to assist us. And we thank you for doing so, and we open our hearts to your guidance. And we ask you to help us to manifest those things that we want in our life. And we thank you for all that you do. We rejoice in your presence, and knowing you are always with us, still from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. May you be blessed now and always as well.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will be back next week for another edition of Tarot Thursday. Blessed be.
Blessed be.